Have you ever felt like your life took a turn you didn't quite expect? Maybe it was a decision that seemed right at the time, but looking back, you wonder if you could have done things differently. That's how my brother Dan felt about moving into a nursing home. If you're sitting there thinking, could this happen to me? Or am I making the right choice for my future? Then this conversation is for you. I want to share his story, not to scare you, but to help you think through some of the things he didn't consider before making this big change. Let me start by saying this wasn't an impulsive decision for Dan. Like many of you, he thought long and hard about it. His kids were busy with their own lives, and he didn't want to be a burden. His health wasn't what it used to be, and cooking, cleaning, and keeping up with the house felt overwhelming. He told himself, a nursing home will take care of all that. It'll be easier. And honestly, in the beginning, it did seem easier. But as time went on, he started noticing things that made him question whether this was truly the best choice for him. One of the first things he regretted was not considering more carefully was how much he'd miss having control over his daily routine. When you live at home, even if it's just you set the pace of your day. You decide when to wake up, what to eat, and how to spend your time. In a nursing home, those decisions are often made for you. Breakfast might be served at 7:30 sharp, whether you're hungry or not. There's a schedule for activities, meals, and even when lights go out. At first, he thought having a routine would be comforting, almost like being on vacation. But soon, he realized it wasn't freedom, it was structure, and sometimes it felt confining. You might be thinking, well, isn't that just part of getting older? Don't we all have to give up a little independence eventually? And yes, to some extent, that's true. But here's the thing. Giving up too much independence too soon can leave you feeling disconnected from who you are. A study published in the Journal of Aging and Health found that maintaining a sense of autonomy, even in small ways, is crucial for emotional well-being as we age. When you lose that ability to make choices, it's easy to start feeling like you're just going through the motions instead of living your life. He didn't realize how much he valued those little decisions until they were taken away. Another aspect he wished he had thought about more carefully was the social environment. When he first moved in, he imagined it would be like joining a close-knit community. After all, everyone there was around his age, and he'd have so much in common, right? Well, not exactly. While there were some lovely people, he quickly learned that not everyone shares the same interests or outlook on life. Some residents were content spending their days watching TV or napping, while others preferred quiet solitude. For someone like him, who loves chatting, reading, and staying active, it was hard to find people who matched his energy. And let's talk about friendships for a moment. Building new relationships later in life isn't as easy as it sounds. Many seniors in nursing homes are dealing with physical or cognitive challenges that make forming connections difficult. Others may already have established cliques. He remembers feeling lonely during those early months because he hadn't anticipated how isolating it could be. Sure, there were group activities, but they weren't always things he enjoyed. It reminded him of high school, where you either fit in or you didn't, except now the stakes felt higher because these were supposed to be his golden years. Something else he didn't fully grasp was how much moving into a nursing home would affect his sense of identity. At home, he was still me, the person who cooked his favorite recipes, tended to his garden, and hosted family gatherings. In a nursing home, he became a resident. It sounds silly, but labels matter. They shape how we see ourselves and how others see us. Over time, he noticed he was starting to define himself by what he couldn't do anymore rather than what he could. The staff was kind, don't get me wrong, but there was an underlying assumption that he needed help with nearly everything. Sometimes, he wondered if he was losing parts of himself faster than he would have if he'd stayed at home. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but aren't nursing homes safer? Isn't it better to have medical care nearby? Absolutely, safety and access to care are important considerations, and I'll address those concerns in a bit. What I'm trying to say is that the trade-offs aren't always as clear-cut as they seem. For every benefit, there's a potential downside, and it's essential to weigh them carefully. Because once you move, it's not always easy to go back. As Dan reflected on these experiences, he realized how much he underestimated the importance of staying connected to the world outside. Whether it's tending to a hobby, volunteering, or simply running errands, those little interactions keep us grounded. Without them, life can start to feel smaller, quieter, and less vibrant. And that's something he wishes he'd considered more deeply before making such a significant change. Now that we've talked about how losing independence and struggling to connect socially impacted his experience, let's shift gears a bit. There's another side to this story, one that involves finances, family dynamics, and the unexpected challenges of relying on others. These are topics that hit close to home for many of us, and I think you'll find them just as eye-opening as what we've discussed so far. When it comes to making a decision as big as moving into a nursing home, finances are often one of the first things people consider. I know he did. At the time, it seemed like a practical choice. After all, selling his house would cover the cost for a while, and he wouldn't have to worry about unexpected expenses like roof repairs or rising utility bills. But what he didn't fully grasp was how quickly those costs could add up and how much of his savings would disappear over time. Let me explain. Nursing homes aren't cheap, and even with insurance or government assistance, there are always additional fees. Whether it's for extra services, upgraded accommodation, or specialized care, the bills can pile up faster than you'd expect. I remember sitting down one day with Dan and doing the math, and it hit us. The money he'd worked so hard to save throughout his life was dwindling away. It wasn't just about the numbers. It was about what that money represented. Every dollar spent felt like another piece of his legacy slipping through his fingers. What made this realization even harder was knowing that he couldn't pass on as much to his kids and grandkids as he had hoped. Family has always been important to him, and part of the joy of growing older was imagining how he could help them. Whether it was paying for a grandchild's education or leaving something behind for future generations. But now, instead of building that legacy, he was watching it shrink. A report from the National Institute on Aging highlights how financial strain in later life can lead to stress and regret, especially when it impacts family dynamics. He wishes he'd thought more about the long-term financial implications before making such a major commitment. Speaking of family, that brings me to another aspect of this decision that he hadn't fully anticipated. How it would change his relationships with his loved ones. When he moved into the nursing home, he thought it would bring them closer together. They wouldn't have to worry about checking in on him or helping with chores, and they could focus on enjoying their time together. But the reality turned out to be quite different. At first, his kids and grandkids visited regularly, and it was wonderful for him to see their faces. But as time went on, those visits became less frequent. Life gets busy, doesn't it? Between work, school, and their own families, they had their hands full. And honestly, he started to feel guilty every time they came. He knew they were juggling so much already, and here he was adding one more thing to their plates. The guilt wasn't intentional, it just crept in. He began to wonder if he was becoming a burden in a different way, even though he'd moved to avoid exactly that. It's funny how life works sometimes. You make a decision thinking it will simplify things, only to realize it's created a whole new set of complications. In this case, the distance, both physical and emotional, between him and his family grew in ways he hadn't expected. Don't get me wrong, he was incredibly grateful for the love and support they'd given him. But there's a difference between being cared for and feeling like you're relying too heavily on others. That sense of dependence isn't easy to shake, and it's something he wrestles with often. Another challenge he faced, and one that I think many people overlook, is the toll that institutional living can take on your mental health. When you're surrounded by others who are also dealing with health issues or mobility challenges, it's easy to fall into a mindset of decline. You start noticing the walkers, the wheelchairs, the medications being passed out at dinner. It's not that these things are inherently bad. They're just reminders of where you are in life. And let me tell you, those reminders can wear on you after a while. I remember reading an article in Psychology Today that discussed how the environment plays a huge role in shaping our outlook on aging. Being in a place where everyone is focused on managing illness or disability can subtly shift your perspective. Instead of thinking about what you can do, you start focusing on what you can't. For him, that meant losing some of the optimism he once had about my abilities. He began to doubt whether he could still handle certain tasks or pursue hobbies he used to love. It's almost like the nursing home environment convinced him that he was less capable than he actually was. But here's the thing, staying mentally sharp and engaged is just as important as taking care of your physical health. Research shows that continuing to challenge yourself, whether it's learning something new, staying socially active, or finding purpose in your daily life, can significantly improve your quality of life as you age. Yet, in a nursing home, opportunities for growth and stimulation can sometimes feel limited. Sure, there are activities planned, but they don't always align with your personal interests or passions. Over time, that lack of engagement can leave you feeling stagnant, like you're just marking time instead of truly living. There were days when he found himself longing for the little things he used to take for granted, like having a project to work on or a reason to get out of bed beyond breakfast. At home, he had routines and responsibilities that gave his days structure and meaning. Here, those elements felt stripped away. Even simple pleasures, like cooking a meal or attending to plants, became someone else's job. He realized that those seemingly mundane tasks weren't just chores. They were part of what kept him connected to the rhythm of life. As I reflect on these experiences, the financial strain, the changing family dynamics, and the impact on his mental well-being, I can't help but wonder if there might have been another path. Could he have stayed at home longer with the right support system? Could he have found a balance that allowed him to maintain his independence without sacrificing safety or connection? These questions linger, and while I don't have all the answers, I do believe it's worth exploring alternatives before making such a significant life change. Now that we've talked about the financial, relational, and psychological aspects of moving into a nursing home, let's turn our attention to the final pieces of this puzzle. There's more to unpack, including the importance of preparation, the value of community resources, and how small adjustments can sometimes make a big difference. Let's keep going and see what lessons we can take away from this journey. As we continue this conversation, I want to touch on something that might surprise you: the importance of preparation, and not just in terms of finances or healthcare. Moving into a nursing home isn't just about finding a place to live. It's about setting yourself up for the kind of life you want to lead. And honestly, looking back, I realize now that he wasn't as prepared as he thought he was. When he made the decision to move, he assumed that everything would fall into place once he got settled. But what he didn't fully grasp was how much effort goes into creating a sense of home, even within an institutional setting. At first, he brought some of his favorite belongings, a quilt our mother made, a few cherished photos, and a lamp that had been in the family for years. He thought those personal touches would be enough to make the space feel like his, and for a little while, they did. But over time, those items started to feel out of place in an environment that wasn't designed with individuality in mind. The walls were plain, the furniture was standard issue, and no matter how hard he tried, it never really felt like home. What he wished he'd done differently was spend more time thinking about how he could adapt his surroundings to reflect who he was. Maybe he could have painted the walls a warmer color or added more plants to brighten up the room. Small changes can make a big difference, and I've since learned that many nursing homes are open to residents personalizing their spaces, if you're willing to advocate for yourself. It's not always easy, But taking ownership of your environment, even in small ways, can help preserve your sense of identity. Another thing Dan regrets, not considering more carefully, is the role of community resources. When he moved, he thought the nursing home would meet all his needs: medical, social, emotional. But what he didn't realize was how valuable outside support systems could be. For example, there are organizations that specialize in helping seniors stay connected through volunteer programs, virtual classes, or even transportation services for outings. These resources aren't always advertised, but they exist, and they can provide a lifeline to the outside world. I remember reading about a study published in the Journal of Gerontology that highlighted the benefits of staying socially engaged, even when living in a nursing home. The researchers found that seniors who maintained connections beyond their immediate environment reported higher levels of happiness and overall well-being. This makes so much sense when you think about it. Human beings thrive on variety and interaction, and relying solely on the people and activities within the nursing home can limit your opportunities for growth and fulfillment. I wish Dan had explored these external resources earlier and made them a bigger part of his routine. One resource I wish he'd tapped into sooner is technology. At first, he resisted using devices like tablets or smartphones because they felt unfamiliar and overwhelming. But over time, he realized how powerful they could be for staying connected. Video calls with family, online book clubs, and even virtual exercise classes became lifelines during moments when he felt isolated. Technology doesn't replace face-to-face interaction, of course, but it does offer a way to bridge gaps and keep you engaged with the world. If you're hesitant about diving into tech, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are plenty of tutorials and support groups designed specifically for seniors. Now, let's talk about another area where preparation can make a huge difference: planning for independence. One of the hardest lessons he learned is that moving into a nursing home doesn't mean giving up control over your life entirely. There are still choices you can make, and advocating for yourself is key. For instance, if you prefer certain foods, medications at specific times, or flexibility in your daily schedule, speak up. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but staff members generally appreciate residents who communicate their needs clearly. After all, they're there to help, not dictate how you should live. This idea of self-advocacy ties into something else I wish he'd embraced more fully: staying physically active. When he moved into the nursing home, he assumed that someone else would take charge of his fitness routine. While there were group exercises available, they weren't always tailored to his abilities or interests. Over time, he noticed that he wasn't moving as much as he used to, and it took a toll, not just physically, but mentally too. Studies show that regular physical activity can improve mood, boost energy levels, and even slow down age-related decline. Whether it's walking, stretching, or chair yoga, finding ways to stay active is crucial, no matter where you live. Looking back, I see now that staying proactive about his health and well-being could have made a significant difference in his experience. Instead of waiting for solutions to come to him, he could have sought them out himself. That mindset shift from passive acceptance to active engagement is something I encourage everyone to consider, whether you're contemplating a move or already living in a nursing home. As I wrap up these reflections, I want to leave you with a message of hope and encouragement. Yes, moving into a nursing home comes with challenges, and yes, there are aspects of Dan's decision that he regrets. But that doesn't mean it has to define the rest of your life, or his. Every day presents an opportunity to adjust, seek new connections, and rediscover joy in the little things. If you're facing this decision, take your time. Talk to others who have been through it. Explore alternative options like assisted living or in-home care, and weigh the pros and cons carefully. And if you're already in a nursing home, remember that it's never too late to make changes that align with your values and goals. Advocate for yourself, lean on your support system, and don't be afraid to try new things. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Have you or someone you know had a similar experience? What advice would you share with others in this situation? Please leave a comment below. Your insights could help someone else navigating this journey. And if you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We cover topics like this regularly, offering practical tips and heartfelt stories to inspire healthier, happier lives at any age. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Here's to making choices that honor who we are and embracing each stage of life with courage and grace.